everyone. So I have started this journey of hitting 50 grams of protein per meal at least 3 times a day, getting me in 150 grams of protein. And I feel like I've struck some interest from several, mostly from you women, which I think is awesome because us women could really use this, especially as we're getting into our older ages, menopause, all those fun things with hormones, insulin tends to get off, and things like that. I've watched a lot of people. Sorry, when I pull up my hair, I mess with it. When I leave it down, I mess with it. I gotta quit touching my hair. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about this because I feel like I'm getting messages about things, and so I kind of created a little printable. I have also wanted to just kind of create a blog so you guys can go into my website and read the blog, and it has a lot of information there. And then this is just kind of me discussing what's in the blog itself. Protein is so important for our hormones, for our brain, for our body. We want to be able to get older and still be able to be movable, keep our joints working well. Muscle mass is how we're going to hold ourselves upright and keep ourselves active. Not to mention it's helping a lot with keeping our insulin and our blood sugars and being able to have more freedom to eat what you like. But as we get older, the amount of protein we need increases. I know that sounds backwards, but we need more protein because the protein synthesis is getting impacted and how well we take in specifically leucine. So me personally, I actually supplement also leucine at a little higher dose, but I know there's a lot of discussion about how if you get too much into that, you can throw an imbalance there. So you really need to know what you're doing, just adding in foods. But what I wanted to be discussing is that I feel like I get a lot of people saying, well, I'm eating this and I'm eating that. My goal through this whole protein is actually eating meat for my main source. That's not to say that I don't have other types of proteins in there, but my main source of my protein is from my meats. What happens is when we get into protein bars, whey proteins, dairy, cheeses, that we're adding a lot of glucose back in, which then starts to impact the insulin. And we're not really, especially if you're trying to just build muscle mass and lose sugar factors or balance your insulin for hormones and such, the cheeses and all that can be helpful. That's not to say, however, that I don't have them anytime. I am here and there, but the best time for you to throw in something more sugary is if you're working out. So if you're doing a workout and you want something quick after that, that's when to throw it in is the best options. Now, doing like a casein protein too at bedtime, if you're someone who your blood sugars are up and down, but doing the higher protein really should help with that. But if you're finding that your blood sugar tends to spike and drop and it impacts you sleeping, doing like a casein protein at bedtime can be very helpful because it's slow digesting. But a lot of people have issues with the casein. So if you're needing some of that, I would maybe go towards like egg whites and peanut butter. That can help just balance out your blood sugar to help you sleep better, which is also going to help with the insulin factor. So when we are 30 and younger, we can have around 20-25 grams of protein and still be doing well. However, if you're in like the bodybuilding world, they're still going to push you to at least 1 gram per body pound. And everything that is coming out recently is stating 1 gram per body pound is ideal. Now, the RDA is 0.8 per kilogram, which is half of your body weight, basically. So it's under a gram per half of your body weight. What I do recommend is that I personally am trying to do 1 gram per desired body weight at least. But really right now with the 50 grams of protein, which the reason I'm doing this is I listened to Gabrielle Lyons. And if any of you guys have seen Gabrielle Lyons, she looks amazing. And she's had kids and everything else. And she just looks amazing. And she focuses in and she says, and she is a doctor, She does say 50 grams of protein no matter who you are. Everyone should be getting in 50 grams of protein. And she even had the question asked to her about adding in the leucine, and she says, well, you throw off the ratios if you're just supplementing too much of the lysine. So you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to do that. So there is going to be ratios to like 30 and under. They recommend 25 grams per meal, 40 to 50, anywhere from 30 to 50 grams. And then over 60 and over, you really should be trying to hit that 50. We get into sarcopenia where muscle mass starts to deteriorate at a rapid rate. Our digestion is key because our digestion really doesn't work. After 50, you have about 50% of your stomach acidity. Your digestion's just not working as well unless you put great effort into it. I highly recommend that you're probably taking something for digestion or doing certain foods that are boosting digestion during this time. It is important if you want to have ultimate aging well, looking well, keeping yourself young, all of those things, digestion and keeping it functioning well is very key because otherwise that's not going to happen because you can't get in what you need to break down. Now, when it comes to the whey and all of that, I guess I kind of had a cheat. I'm probably doing more. And I like the perfect aminos are about how they convert into protein versus glucose. So another thing Gabrielle Lyons has talked about in her podcast is that 60% of the protein you eat is getting converted into glucose. So like if I'm eating 50 grams, over 30 grams of that is getting converted to use as glucose. So I'm not really getting the full conversion. With perfect aminos, they have the highest conversion of the essential amino acids, which essential amino acids are all the individual amino acids you need to generate all the other proteins in your body. If you're having those essential amino acids, those amino acids will help you to generate whatever else you're needing. So it's making sure they're always completed. People who have incomplete proteins in their body from plants and other, or you're just charring your meats and different things like that, you end up with thick blood. You end up working cardiovascular a lot harder and can cause sticky thickness, just not great. And you're not getting the rebuild you need because you have incomplete. The body can't use incomplete protein to regenerate the things it needs in the body. It needs the complete amino acid profile to be able to generate and build whatever it needs. Now, with doing the more proteins, you're going to get in fats, which fats are essential. When you're really, really trying to lean out, you probably pay more attention to that. But when you're doing that, you're not focused in on hormone health and how well that's functioning. To have good hormones, you need to be digesting fat and digesting proteins because that is what the body is using to generate these hormones. And so it's essential that we have these fats in there. And there's so much information out there that people think that if you eat fat, you get fat, it's bad for your heart, all of these things. I have had heart issues. When I eat my proteins and I get quality proteins in, I can tell a difference in my energies and how well my heart's hurting or not hurting. I've had the enlarged where it's taken me to my knees. I do attribute a lot of my B vitamins to that, but when we're eating proteins and such like that, it's helping the gut to not be overwhelmed with an abundance of carbohydrates and chemical factors, caffeine, chemicals, a lot of carbohydrates. The body is going to use certain minerals and your B vitamins it will get depleted and used. So you need to be able to have the appropriate balance of all that to keep the intestines working well and generating your own B vitamins. It can help the heart. There's a lot too to be said about too much meat is bad for your colon. What I am talking about with adding the 50 grams of protein per meal, I am not telling you that you should not be eating your fruits and your vegetables, which are going to have fibrous factors, which are going to help that colon to keep things moving. I don't prescribe to the factor that to me, it's about quality. You should also be including fibrous things, and I do more of like the fruits and berries. I will have greens as well. I just try not to overdo the greens because, again, it can impact thyroid and how well that's functioning. And I am soaking any of my greens itself. So it's important for all of that. So this isn't to say that you're eating 50 grams of protein and you're just doing all carnivore. I am saying I am just increasing and making sure at each meal I am getting 50 grams of protein. So what we want to do when we're generating our meals is we want to anchor our protein as a center of our meal. So we're going to take chicken or ground beef or turkey or even salmon. If you're going to do salmon, you have to do a little bit higher because there's more fat. And when you're doing eggs, you have to do quite a bit to reach. And some people will do where they'll do the whole egg for so many of them, and then they'll do just egg whites for the rest, because the egg whites are what are actual protein, where the egg yolk is the fats, which there's a lot of benefits to that as well. So that amount you need, so like 3 whole eggs with 1 cup of egg whites is really only giving you like 38 grams of protein itself. So 7 ounces of chicken, 7 ounces of ground beef or turkey. For salmon, you would do 8 ounces. I'm putting on a little cheat guide of combining to how to get to the 50 grams. But my anchor and my main source of my protein is coming from my meats. I may add other things in that will support that. So like yogurt or quinoa and those kind of things to my meal, which is going to be helping to support my protein source or my protein amount to make sure I'm getting that 50. But it's not my main chunk is coming from meats. Now, with your main chunk coming from meats, how you're preparing your meats is important. We don't want to overcook or char them. Now, a lot of you guys get freaked out about this. Good gut health should keep you good with digesting and not having things come in as a negative. But if your digestion is off, you need to work on fixing that, because it's important so you can actually digest your food. Good stomach acidity or balanced stomach acidity, digestive enzymes, liver working well, all these things will impact how we're absorbing it. With time of just doing this, they'll balance out because you're taking away some of the negatives that can have a negative impact on liver or stomach and things like that. But in the beginning, you may need that. You can do things like cheeses, but I personally try to limit that because, again, cheeses, yogurts, those all are going to have a glucose factor to them. And if I'm trying to drop weight while building muscle, muscle is going to generically actually make you weigh more. But I'm also trying to get my body to let go of fat that it's storing so that I can be leaner. And the misinformation there is that when we eat more, we're just fat because we're eating too much and we're not moving enough. But the reality is if you're getting the right amount of fuel you need for the body to do your hormones and all the basics it needs, because you have your maintenance calories that just keep your body functioning if you do nothing else. And then the rest is trying to build. And building muscle mass, you can't eat a really low calorie and build up muscle mass. They don't tend to work. So like with bodybuilding, most of them are doing higher amounts of calories for long times and then they slowly trim that down. But the goal should be to try to keep the higher amount of calories and get the metabolism burning more and producing more while keeping your calories at a higher ratio. That's actually for girls who are doing bodybuilding, that's the ultimate, because then when you come off of bodybuilding, you don't blow up 2 to 3 times your size. I've seen a ton of people who do it, they come off of it, and then all of a sudden they can't get back down to a good weight. It's just a nightmare because they've been metabolically damaged because they've reduced their calories too much. Us girls do not respond to the calorie things the same way men do. So for all you ladies who are saying, oh, my husband just stopped eating candy and he has abs now, you're different. How you have to do this is different. I highly, highly recommend for any of you that are saying that, go listen to Stacy Sims' Roar book or go read it. She talks a lot about calories and the different things and how we need to keep our calories higher and go to quality. Quality is key, especially as you have hormonal things happening. I have just within this last week and a half dropped another body fat percentage. Granted, my lean muscle mass, because I've been focused just so much on the protein, it's not dropped drastically, but it hasn't gone up necessarily either. But body fat percentage going down is an indicator I'm going in the right direction. So, but my goal is to keep my proteins high and getting enough carbohydrates to help it actually build as well. But getting in that 50 grams is an adjustment. That's a lot of food. Anyway, if you guys have been watching my Instagram or Facebook, you can see that I am not leaving out carbs. There are times that I'm just eating protein because that's all I have to try to get the amount I need. And I'm trying to avoid, like the other day I had Chick-fil-A, I just had their nuggets. I didn't want fries because I'm trying not to do pro-inflammatory things at this point, especially because those pro-inflammatories are going to make me puff up as well. So I'm not trying to avoid carbs. Like I will today probably have my turkey, my potatoes, and then I have like a mayo sriracha dressing on it. Good stuff. Anyway, a big part of this journey of doing the 50 grams per is really trying to prep. If you can batch cook proteins and pre-measure them into servings for yourself, it simplifies this so much more. And it doesn't take much to do that. Again, the guide will kind of show you how much you need of everything, but batch cooking it, separating it, my meal prep is basically where I do that. My daughter's been doing it where we're only getting like 4 grams of protein. And so I boosted it up to 6 to 7 grams per meal so that we just have enough protein, or I have enough protein. She's not necessarily trying to do that, but kind of getting drug along because of me. So you can do bars, whey. But I don't recommend again that if you're constantly turning as like, oh, I just don't have time. I gotta do a shake. Oh, I don't have time. And we're doing it daily or on a regular basis, that's gonna be a problem. You really do want to get 50 grams of actual protein food, not shakes, not bars. Those are not really food. Those are simplified sources that help us out. And if you're someone who wants to have another thing, like I have my perfect aminos in here. I do the lemon lime. You can even do the pills if you have a hard time with some of the stevia, which is how they sweeten things. If you have a problem with that, do the pills. And you don't necessarily, they have you taking a lot of pills is the problem for most people, but you really don't need as much as they're saying to help just kind of complement, support that. But again, I would do the perfect aminos I like because it's less aggressive on the kidneys and the liver, which a lot of people can have issue with. And when it comes down to like, oh, this is going to cause kidney issues, if you're having kidney function problems with increasing the protein, you've got to be having excess sugars and really more processed sugars, because the sugar and the protein don't necessarily mix well when it's the simple ones. If you got the more complex with just coming from actual like potatoes or fruits and things like that. But if you have an excess of sugar, it will kind of weigh on the kidneys and can have an impact there. But it's not the protein, it's the sugars. And you want to, if you're in this journey anyway, you really should be just focusing on the protein first, which should slow down sugar intake. But chemical sugars and things like that can be a process of that as well. So batch cook, prep, putting out the chunks so that you have that available. Even if you're just doing it for 1 meal a day, it just simplifies everything. And once you get into the regimen of doing the 50 grams, it's really simplified. But there's a guide that I've attached to the YouTube and to the blog so that you guys can click on that and it'll kind of give you some guides of what to do. It's hard for me to give like specific meals because everyone and what they like is so greatly different that it's hard. My tip would be anchor protein. What protein am I going to have and what amount of grams? Okay, what do I like to go along with that? Do I want greens? Do I want some quinoa? Do I want some potatoes and maybe some cottage cheese? How am I going to combine them to get the amount I need and change it up for meals itself? Pinterest is amazing to go look at if you have specific foods you want to find recipes for, and then you just do quality and don't include all the sugars that they tend to add in and stuff, and look for clean ones. That's what I'm doing when I'm meal prepping, but keeping it simple. Don't overcomplicate this. This type of eating is very simplified. Focus again on protein first, and then after that, you'll keep building on and getting better at. So don't try to do more than one of like a bar or a whey or something like that. Perfect aminos is okay to keep doing alongside because you're not necessarily getting an abundance of sugars or it's not weighing heavily on there. But again, if you're doing like a whey or protein bars or protein balls that have the wheys in it, protein pancakes, cottage cheese, try to just limit too much excess of the sugary types of proteins. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Hopefully you're coming along the journey with me. I'm excited of doing this. I'm doing this before I go on my cruise just to kind of push myself. I figured I'm sure I'll continue to do it. I just figured the couple 2 or 3 weeks prior to kind of doing and starting there will be awesome. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, message me or write comments. Hopefully this is helpful and all the guide. Go to the blog itself. You can find the information on that in my blog. I will connect a link to it as well. So if maybe some of you probably are starting there and then going into the YouTube. Some of you are on the YouTube. I will try to connect a connection for the actual blog so it has it all written out there as well. All right. I hope you guys have a great day and we will talk to you later.